Welcome to Screen Weens. I'm one of your hosts, Thomas. There's your other host.
Hey, it's me, Alberto. I'm London.
Yes.
The other host of the podcast, as some would call it. We call it the podcast because it's the only podcast that exists.
It's true. It's true. I've yet to come across any other podcast, so.
We actually coined the term.
Podcast?
Yeah.
Yeah, I just made it up one day.
Because we were like two peas in a pod, and what if we casted ourselves?
Yeah, there you go. Yeah.
So welcome back to Screen Weens. This is episode 171, yes. Maybe?
Let's go with that. If we're wrong, they'll tell us in the comments.
Remember when we covered Ghostmates?
I do.
Or 172, sorry. Today we're going to be talking about Jamaa Fanaka and his trilogy, his Penitentiary Trilogy.
Mm-hmm.
But before that, as always, we're going to take a moment to sniff the roses, as they say. Who's they? No idea. Never heard anyone actually say that. And we're going to talk about our week, see how we're doing, see what else we've been watching or not watching. So, Thomas, what have you been up to?
Not a whole lot. Let's see. I watched through season 4 of Star Trek: The Next Generation. I'm all finished with that season, and a lot. I usually heard that like seasons 3 and 4 is like where TNG kind of peaked, and I can kind of see why. Although I think episode to episode, it's a lot of peaks and valleys. But yeah, now I've got the back half of the show to get through. But I decided to pivot over to classic Doctor Who.
I have yet to see Classic Who.
Yeah, it's a bit of an acquired taste. I tried going through Hartnell a couple times, like since graduating high school, and I made it decently far one time, but I was kind of skipping around because I wasn't watching any of the ones that had. The trouble with the first 2 Doctors is they've got a lot of lost episodes. Yeah. So it's a lot of like incomplete stuff, but there's a lot of animations and there's a lot of fan animations. So I've been watching a lot of those to kind of like fill in the gaps. It's pretty interesting, but they have like other official forms. Like a bunch of them are reconstructed with telesnaps. I'm not sure if you know what those are. It's basically like a method that they used to use like before a lot like home video, where basically like, let's say you're a producer for a show and you're like, oh, I kind of want evidence that this show existed. So you would commission telesnap. So they would basically like hook up a camera to it and it would like take so many pictures per frames, and it would like it wouldn't like take a bunch of pictures, but enough to where you could kind of get a general idea of what's going on scene to scene.
Oh, okay.
So yeah, that was kind of a common practice back then sometimes. But yeah, so there's a lot of like recorded audio for those missing episodes. So there's kind of creative ways that they try to patch it all together. But yeah, a lot of stories are like missing pieces or altogether missing. So that can be kind of daunting. But once you get to like 3, which is the color era, it's all there. So except for one Tom Baker serial where apparently they started it and they filmed episodes to it, but like in the middle of making it, there was a big writer's strike, so they just never finished that serial.
Oh.
Yeah. But
whoops.
They've gone back and like done like audio recordings for it and stuff. Yeah, I don't know. I haven't gotten that far yet. I've not watched anything classic beyond Hartnell, so I'm looking forward to it though. I'm hoping to get far this time. And then I watched 28 Days Later and the Penitentiary movies. So, yeah.
Good mix, I guess.
Yeah, it's all right.
That movie's pretty decent.
28 Days Later? Yeah, no, it's good. It lays the foundation for a lot of things that are generic now, but weren't quite so at the time. So it's like,
haven't seen Weeks. I don't know if I'd enjoy it.
I saw Weeks a couple times when I was younger. I never really cared for it, but I might like it now that I'm older. But I didn't realize the mom from Moonlight was in 28 Days Later until I was watching it. And the whole time I was like, she looks really familiar. And I kept seeing her like saying the F slur. So I was like, oh, yeah, that's what it was. So I was like, I don't know why. I have like a kind of negative connotation with this woman. And then it hit me. I was like, oh, yeah.
Yeah, okay.
But yeah, no, she's good in that movie. I mean, she's good in both movies, but she plays a much more likable character in 28 Days. But,
yeah.
Yeah, anyway, that was pretty much my week. How about yours?
Great question. I've been, let's see, what did I do? We're caught up with Poker Face, the new Ryan Johnson show, which is very fun. Episode 4 had John Darnielle in it.
Yeah, I remember you
which is great.
that.
I finished Velma. Also, season 2 is in the works. Which is,
yeah, I heard it got greenlit because everybody hate watched.
Which is, I think people on the internet overestimate how much power they have. I have a feeling, most people aren't on the internet. I feel like people just watched it because it was Scooby-Doo, and also Mindy Kaling's like a pretty big name for like TV, so I feel like most people just watched it.
Yeah, maybe.
It was very bad. I will be tuning in for season 2, unfortunately, because it's Scooby-Doo. I've been also watching some Scooby-Doo and Scrappy-Doo, which is classic. It's really dumb. The first season is like full episodes, and then the rest of the seasons are like 8-minute episodes. And I've just kind of been jumping around. I'm just gonna watch a random episode. I forgot that Scooby-Dum, not Scooby-Dum. Yankee Doo, he shows up, which is Scooby's cousin or brother.
Is he the gray one?
He's one of there's Scooby-Dum, which is a gray one, and then there's Yankee Doo, which is
white.
I think he's like whitish gray, and he has the red hat, and he talks. He's like, "Howdy, partner, my name's Yankee Doo."
Oh, jeez. Lovely.
It's pretty good.
Yeah, I haven't watched much from that era. They were really
going.
They weren't. That era wasn't super accessible when I was a kid, aside from some loose.
I don't know what the fuck they're doing, but I'm for it. They're doing things because the formula was still, it was like 14 years in, but in the grand scheme of things, it was still like relatively new for what they were doing. So they were like, let's just start experimenting, throwing a random fucking dog. That episode, I forgot there are episodes with just, I think it's Yankee Doo and Scrappy. Like, Scooby's not even in the episode. What the fuck's happening?
Interesting. I'm just imagining, an episode where it's just, Shaggy, and then there's just Scooby, Scrappy, fucking Dumb, and Yankee Doo, or whatever is there. It's just
classic.
Oh, my gosh.
And then I also have been watching a little bit of Scooby-Doo and Guess Who, which is the newest series besides Velma.
Is that one that's got the pretty bad animation style?
No, that's Be Cool Scooby-Doo. I've only seen an episode of Be Cool Scooby-Doo. I did not enjoy it, but I'll probably eventually. I think, you're doing your Star Trek thing. I'm probably, now your Classic Who thing, I'm probably just going to start watching all the Scooby-Doo stuff. Because, I've watched all the movies. And, Scooby-Doo, so they used to do Scooby-Doo, I don't remember what it was called. Maybe it was the new Scooby-Doo movies, but they would have guests all the time on them.
Oh,
and Scooby-Doo and Guess Who is pretty much the same thing. The first episode is with Batman. And it's funny because they alternate between superheroes and real-life people. So I watched the Weird Al episode, which was delightful. I loved it.
Yeah, it sounds like it'd be a pretty good matchup.
Yeah, so I've been watching lots of Scooby-Doo stuff. Movie-wise, there was I watched Atypical Wednesday, which is a random, comedy that I saw recommended by a friend for Black History Month. They had watched it, so sure, I'll watch it. It was from 3 years ago. Just a random little kind of road trip comedy about a black guy that meets a neurotypical or a neurodivergent little white kid, and they bond. And when he tries to give the kid life lessons, he realizes that maybe he needs to take those life lessons. It was kind of dumb. It was fine. Seth Green is randomly in it for like 3 scenes. He has probably the funniest line in the movie, where he just like the police are taking the main character away for something that he didn't really do, and he just looks at like his ex-girlfriend and he just quotes Boys in the Hood. She's like, don't fucking quote Boys in the Hood right now. Which was pretty good.
Yeah.
Pretty fun. That movie was fine. Me and Hinata also saw Titanic in theaters because it's back for its 25th anniversary. And the last time I saw Titanic, I did not like it because I was like 12. I think that movie's incredible.
Didn't you just rewatch it not too long ago?
No. I think I was saying I wanted to because I was going through Cameron stuff. I'm like, Titanic's probably good. And it is. That movie's insane. I think it's one of the best paced films I've seen in a long time. Like that 3 hours and like 20 minutes or whatever it is flies by.
Yeah, I haven't watched it in a very long time.
And it's gorgeous. And like even like most of the like effects work for being 25 years old is pretty good. You know, James Cameron is like, take your time.
Yeah.
Instead of the MCU is like, turn it out. I'm seeing Ant-Man in 3 days. So next week I'll tell you how bad it was. It looks bad. It looks rough. There is a new trailer for Guardians 3. That movie looks pretty good. As much as I don't really like the slog that we're in, I think that movie looks pretty good. The Flash also got a trailer.
Oh, okay.
I guess it looks better than expected, but not great.
Yeah, I'm honestly surprised they're still releasing.
Yeah.
After scrapping the other ones and the fact that like Ezra Miller is like.
Yeah, I mean Michael Keaton's in this one.
Well, at least there's.
Which is really funny because I feel like after watching this, if I go back and watch Birdman, it'll just make Birdman even more sad. Because, you know, it's just all about, it's like, this is all people want to see me as, and now I just celebrate. Like,
I mean, I like Michael Keaton in other things. Like, I really like him in Jackie Brown.
I still haven't seen Jackie. I was just talking to my friend how I haven't seen Jackie Brown. I want to see it. I think Michael Keaton's a tremendous actor, and I think he was a good Batman. But I'm just like, what? Yeah. What's happening? Why are we like? Why do we have so much contempt for making new things? Why do we need to revisit the past so much?
I don't know if it's that we have contempt for making new things as much as we have a massive erection for making everything superheroes.
Even then, you know, there's so much untapped superhero stuff in the comics that we're just not touching. It's like, we need more Batman. No, we fucking don't. Which is the same thing with the comics industry, you know? It's like, you know what? Here's all these characters that haven't had runs in 20 years, but here's 14 Batman runs.
Yeah, I don't know. It's kind of weird because it's like, I feel like we're entering that transitional period where not we as a society, but those who are like running the show are deeming that we as a society are now ready for the weirdness of Marvel in like just the last few years. And it's like, okay, but it's also kind of coinciding with like a lot of superhero fatigue for a lot of people.
Which is also annoying because even like, you know, I read the comics. I don't read a ton of them, but I do read comics. There's 4 short boxes right next to me. But it's just like, even when Marvel gets really weird, I'm like, it's still just kind of baby shit, you know?
Oh,
at least in like, I want to read weird stuff.
Yeah.
And it's like Marvel comics, even the like mature ones, even the Max comics, even like the Black Label for DC, they're still like they're written like comics that a kid will find in a couple of years. I'm like, I want something for an adult. I'm fine with, you know, reading comics and stuff, but I just like.
You want something adult? That means you want blood and lots of sexuality.
Like, but at the same time, there are a lot of indie comics or image comics that I've been reading that are just like horror comics or like really sexually charged, but they're good. Like Lovesick is one I've been reading a lot of lately. And it's about like this BDSM ring filled with like dominatrixes that they go to the extreme and they like kill their subs pretty much.
Mm.
But it's really good and it has a lot to say and there's a lot of actual subtext and it's so refreshing to read a comic with subtext instead of just like, hey stupid, you want to know what the comic's about?
Oh yeah.
Wow, this comic's treating me like an adult or someone who has a reading comprehension level above like a second grader. I'm just a bitter old man, apparently.
I mean, yeah.
It's also really hard to shift between reading comics and reading books. Like, I'll read Dune, and I'm still not quite done with Dune just because, like, usually I'll finish a book and then I'll have to wait, like, 3 weeks for you guys to be done. So I've been trying to, like, stop myself until, like, the actual day so that it's fresh in my head. But that book, while I don't think it's, like, a hard read, it has a lot of, there's a lot to it and there's a lot to sit and think about. Yeah. And then I read a comic and I'm like, well, that was fun. And that's it,
Yeah, no, exactly. Because even if like a comic does touch upon something like a little bit greater, it's like still stuff that like kind of rudimentary. Like I feel like a good example of this is like TMNT. Like I feel like TMNT is like the movie.
Yeah.
I feel like it's like a really good representation of like comic book themes executed well and with a little bit of depth, but obviously it's like, it's not going to be anything that you're going to be like, wow.
And I'm not saying not all comics are like this, but a lot of the mainstream ones are.
Mm-hmm.
Just kind of boring on an intellectual level, I guess.
Yeah.
Where was I? I have no idea what I was talking about. Titanic. Don't know how I got to that.
Talking about you were going to go see Ant-Man in a couple
of days. Yeah. And then I showed Hinata last night Stop Making Sense, which is that Talking Heads concert film that I love. I still love it. It's so fucking good. It's so good. And then I was listening to the soundtrack of it today. But this morning, I haven't even logged it on Letterboxd yet. What the heck? I was watching a movie by Melvin Van Peebles, who's the director who made Sweet Sweetback's Badass Song, which I haven't watched yet, but is apparently a very big movie in like the blaxploitation genre. But I watched a movie he made that was his follow-up called Don't Play Us Cheap, which is like a musical kind of like drama about these two like demons that come to Earth to disrupt someone's party. But it's the first party they go to that's a black party. And so they disguise themselves as black people. And they keep trying to ruin the party, but the black people are just prepared for everything. Like, they keep drinking all the drinks, and they're like, don't worry, we all brought extra. And they eat all the sandwiches. And it's like, don't worry, this is just the hors d'oeuvre, But the music's pretty fun, and it's filmed kind of like a stage play, and it all takes place in this one apartment. And it was actually like he funded it and he made it, but then he didn't have like a distributor, and he didn't have the money to distribute it. So then he made a stage play of it, and then he distributed the movie after that. So it was kind of a weird cycle. But yeah, it was really fun. I thought it was going to be like darker in tone, but it was like really lighthearted. And I liked the songs and I liked the acting. It kind of reminded me of like, this isn't a bad thing. Like in this case, I think it's legitimately a good thing for this movie. But it kind of reminded me of like a local like community theater production. Like it felt like you knew these people and that they were real people outside of this scenario. If that makes sense. And it kind of comes off that way, the way it's filmed, too. But yeah, I really enjoyed it. I want to watch some of his other works. He did one called The Watermelon Man, which is about a racist white guy who's like he's like a big in some sort of Fortune 500 company. And he slowly starts turning black.
Wait. this is like the fiction in the movie, or is this like based on a real?
No, this is a movie. This is a fiction
Okay.
movie. But he slowly starts turning black. And it's I think it's a black actor in whiteface for most of the movie, and then he just slowly starts turning into what he actually. I guess I wouldn't care either way because it's a black director making the movie.
Oh yeah.
But yeah, I want to watch that movie. He's made a couple ones that I feel are pretty interesting. That one I talked about, Sweetback, badass song. His son, Mario Van Peebles, he directed a movie called Badass, which is like a pseudo like biopic documentary or mockumentary about the making of that movie. Because his dad was eccentric, apparently. Not the best to work with, and he was like 11 when he was working on that movie with his dad. Yeah, I might watch those too as like a double feature in the future. But yeah, that's what I've been watching. Anything else? Oh, we're watching a little more Superman and Lois. We're 3 episodes into season 2. It's good. It's good. You should get back into it.
Yeah, I will when I have a
I think season 3
more.
starts next month.
Oh, does it? Yeah, I probably will here in the near future.
All right, and then let's see if we have questions. Yes. Question 1 from Pierre. Who is your favorite character who you know is a bad person, but you just love them anyway? Probably Thomas.
Yeah.
I mean, I guess Green Goblin. I like Green Goblin. He's kind of the worst for most of it. There's a new run that's apparently good called Gold Goblin. Maybe I'll read it and be like, incredible. That's what comics should be.
Yeah.
Green Goblin. I mean, there's lots of fun, like, bad characters.
Yeah, like the villains you love.
Yeah.
Or hate to love or whatever.
Hate to love to hate, love to love, hate to hate.
Yeah. I'd probably say I feel like a more complicated answer would probably be like either the protagonists from either of the Red Dead games, because they're like bad people, but they're trying to do better throughout the whole thing. But the entire time they're like, I've like killed a shit ton of innocent people. Like, I'm never going to be a good person. Like, so it's kind of an interesting situation there. But I mean, I love Darth Vader. What can I say?
Yeah, Darth Vader is like so iconic.
Yeah, it's just like, oh fuck. Just,
I mean, honestly, most of the villains in Star Wars I really like, even if it's just like visually. Like, I really like Darth Maul, but at the same time, by the end of his story arc, I feel like it's hard to even call him like a villain. He's like a tortured soul.
Yeah. Most One Piece villains, probably Crocodile at the top of that list. I think he's
Big
like the
Mom.
most likable. I like Big Mom enough.
I'm trying to catch back up to One Piece. I don't know where you are, but
I'm reading it week to week, chapter.
Yeah,
by
I think
chapter.
I'm like 5 chapters behind or 6 chapters behind. But.
Yeah, this is a good arc that we're on currently.
Yeah, I'm like, wow, this is picking up quickly too. Like it's like
no, I'm hoping that we just get a bunch of like, because I like post time skip, but like the super arcs have been. Yeah, they're all right, but I miss the kind of like shorter arcs of the past. So I think we're heading back in that direction for the final saga, which is
wonderful. Yeah, I mean, I think Aizen's a really fun villain, but I like Bleach.
Yeah, I've only seen like his first page.
So that's true.
Yeah,
that's true. I think Aizen's really
I can't
fun.
Really comment.
Is Zenigata a bad guy? He's an antagonist, I guess. No. Yeah. Oh, I like Jason. Friday the 13th. I like Jason X.
Yeah. Uber Jason. Yeah, that's the official name.
Fine. Uber Jason.
I like it because it makes it sound like he's driving an Uber.
Jason will be your Uber driver. Oh, hello, Jason. Just gets stabbed in the neck.
Just immediately.
Yeah.
Just crashes the car.
Yeah. So those are our answers. Question 2 from Pierre. What is your favorite Cartoon Network theme song? I have no idea. I don't. My gym partner's a monkey.
Mama had a chicken, Daddy had a cow, or whatever.
Ed, and Eddie.
Yeah.
That, sure.
Just aggressive whistling.
Yeah. I do like that. Yeah, I'll go with that, Ed, and Eddie.
Yeah. I mean, there's a lot of good ones. Like, there's ones that are coming to mind. Like, I really liked, this one was kind of towards the end. Like, I didn't watch a whole lot of this one, but that Johnny Test show had a pretty decent theme. I mean, Adventure Time had a decent theme. Or I guess it's more the ending, I'm thinking. The opening. But yeah, I don't know. They got some decent stuff over there.
And then question 3, when was the last time you watched a movie that legitimately scared you, like shaking in your boots? Thomas, I don't think that's happened to him, and if it has, he was like 7.
Yeah, I would have been really young. There were things that did it back then. Like I used to be really afraid of like the Zelda scenes from the original Pet Sematary. She's the sister who's like Rachel.
But I will say, I think the Zelda scenes in the remake are pretty good. I don't think that movie's very good, but I like them.
I remember not being super impressed, but I was just biased because
I didn't like either movie, so.
Well, yeah.
I remember liking those the most out of, I think, either movie. Like, that was, these are fun.
I could kind of see why. It definitely explores upon the concept a little more. That's like, yeah, that Return of the Living Dead used to scare me as a kid, but it wasn't like, oh, I'm shaking in my boots. It was just more of like the concept of it just no matter what they did, it just kept getting worse and worse and worse. So that was kind of a scary tone for me as a kid. I was like, oh, so there's not a whole lot of that in horror movies, and if it is, it's usually, I don't know, not quite as bleak, but at least not in the ones I was watching at the time. But yes, I don't know. What about you?
I mean, there are things that like fill me with dread that I'll think about later on, and that's probably like I think The Wailing is pretty like spiritually affecting to me. That's a tough one though. I think like the last time I watched a movie that like jump scare wise, I think Lights Out by David F. Sandberg. I think that like he has a really good way of building tension and atmosphere. And I do have an innate fear of like the dark and this being that only appears in the dark. Like, yeah, it's cliche, but it's like, I think it's really effective in that movie.
I will say Twin Peaks straight up has some sequences that kind of make my skin crawl a little bit. It gets very like scenes will just stop being in reality and characters will be like having like a mental episode just for a moment where it's like just like the main character might just like stare at a light bulb for a minute while really intense sound effects happen in the background, and it's just like they like start making like a weird face, and it's just like, what the fuck is happening right now?
I also think actually I guess Climax by Gaspar Noé did scare, but that was more like it was a triggering experience for me.
Yeah, that makes sense.
But that was deeply affecting to me too. So like I do get still affected by like certain horror and stuff, even if it's just in the moment. But it's nothing that's like been super long lasting. But like I do occasionally have nightmares about the Lights Out monster. Also, actually, The Conjuring 2. When I first saw it, what was that, like 2013? Did it come out? It was a while ago. 2017? No, I think first one was 2013. Maybe. It's been like at least 6 years. I think the nun is legitimately pretty horrifying looking. There was, I can't remember where it was from, but my mother has a small little doll in her house. And I think it's from Bali, because she went there a lot. It was either from Bali, maybe it was from Taiwan, because that's where she was born. But it was supposed to be like this small little doll that made the house feel like welcoming. Has spiritual reasons. And I appreciate that now. But as a kid, it scared the shit out of me. I fucking hated it. And I would have multiple reoccurring dreams where a giant version of it would be stalking around at night. And the nun, the way she moves reminds me of that. So I think that's why in my head I'm like, danger.
Yeah. Fucking another movie that actually kind of gave me the heebie-jeebies a bit as a kid. Surprising, it's like kind of more in the suit of like the modern horror film, but Deadly Silence or whatever,
The James Wan movie.
Yeah.
The puppet, yeah.
Mary Shaw in that movie used to kind of creep me out a little bit.
I haven't watched that. I want to rewatch that because, like...
Yeah, same. I haven't watched it in a long time.
James Wan is a director that I'm like, I think he's pretty great.
Mm-hmm.
I really like him.
Yeah, there's some pretty, I still remember scenes from it. So it's like, I remember the ending of Cure reminded me a lot of some of the stuff from the end of that
You know
movie.
what? I actually... speaking of Cure, when I watched... what was this other movie that I watched recently? Pulse, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
There was that scene that I was home alone, and that movie's I don't think is very scary. I think it is deeply affecting, and like that's one that I thought about and kind of made me like really depressed. But there's that scene where it's just completely silent, and you just hear behind you, because I have surround sound, and you hear behind you, and it's just like, help me, or something like that. And it scared the fuck out of me.
Mm.
And I didn't jump, but I just like my stomach dropped. I'm like, holy shit.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's
Hmm.
that guy, Kiyoshi Kurosawa. He's a good.
Yeah, no, I need to watch more of his stuff. Because
Sweet Home was fun.
yeah, Sweet Home, like I said, like it was kind of inconsistent, but the moments where like it wanted to do something cool, it pulled it off.
That scene in Sweet Home when his daughter is completely enveloped in the darkness and just turns. So that's I'm like, ooh.
Yeah.
It wasn't like scary in the way that like, oh God, but it was like, well, that makes me feel uncomfortable, you know? And I'm glad I still feel uncomfortable in things like that. Like, I'm glad movies affect me in those ways still, because I watch a lot of movies, but I'm glad I can still hold on to those things. But yeah, thanks for the questions, Pierre. Thomas is so tired, so we're going to get started with the movies. So Jamaa Fanaka, 1979 is when Penitentiary I came out. And he had already made a couple movies, but he was still, he was in UCLA, and this was pretty much a student kind of thesis film. It was like one of his last movies he made during that time. So it's pretty raw. And it's pretty cheaply made, but I really like this first. I'm a big fan.
I wouldn't say like I really like it, but I did enjoy it. It had a lot of heart, a lot of just good fun moments, and while I think, I don't know, it's both kind of a pro and a con to me. I like that it feels like they just knew a bunch of people that they were like, oh, these people are like really talented, and we're gonna like just showcase them in the movie. Yeah. But then there are also parts where it's like, it just feels like padding, where it's like, why am I watching this just random like group of people like dancing here for like 2 minutes? Like, what's going on here?
That's fair.
But yeah, this movie definitely had like a lot of heart and was a lot of fun, even if it has some like aspects that are like, I feel like not explored as sensitively, particularly like the stuff like assault. But yeah, an interesting movie for sure.
So our lead character, Too Sweet, he is hitchhiking. He gets picked up by a woman. They go into like a diner, and she's supposed to like drop off something to these guys, but they call her a whore, and they call him the N-word, the main character. And they end up getting to a fight, and he gets knocked out, and then he gets sent to prison.
Yeah.
And he still doesn't really know why. We learned later that the woman he was with killed one of the guys because he was trying to sexually assault. But Too Sweet goes to prison instead, and he spends a decent chunk of time there. And he's pretty good at fighting. He gets attacked by his roommate, which is half dead. I will just say it now. I like, what is his name? Ernie Hudson. I think he's a horrible casting for Half Dead in the second movie.
No, I agree.
I think Half Dead is so like brilliantly like unhinged in this, and like kind of horrifying in like a raw and like kind of rough way.
Yeah, like it definitely was a big energy shift.
Yeah, it's just like I think Ernie Hudson's character in the second movie would have maybe worked if he was just a separate character.
Yeah,
there's two characters in the second one that they do that with, and it pisses me off on both accounts because I think they're both bad choices.
Yeah, they easily could have just reworked it to have the character have the grudge against Too Sweet for some other reason.
Yeah.
Maybe he knew him before he got sent to the penitentiary.
Because then they do that in the third one. He meets like someone that he's already,
yeah.
But the first one, Half Dead, this guy, he's part of this like crew that's run by Jesse Amos, who's like kind of the ringleader of this penitentiary. He's really good at boxing. So is Half Dead. Half Dead's a good fighter, but Too Sweet just beats the shit out of him pretty much.
Yeah.
So he's convinced to join this like boxing tournament because if you win the whole tournament, you get sent home. You get sent on parole. And he's like, okay, I want to leave.
Yeah.
So he starts becoming a good boxer.
Yeah. Meanwhile, this movie's kind of... This is one of the things that I kind of had issue with just because I didn't feel like it was balanced very well. But it's kind of got two main characters because you're also getting large portions of the film dedicated to... Is the character's name Gage?
No, it's Eugene. Because they call him Genie.
Yes. Who is basically... He's also like fresh to the prison, and he's kind of...
I think he's been there a little bit longer.
Yeah, like 6 months longer. And he's kind of like bent the knee to like this group of guys and kind of just takes their abuse.
Yeah, he lives in Jesse's cell, and he's his quote unquote bitch.
Yes.
And but Too Sweet kind of befriends him, and he is impassioned and emboldened by Too Sweet. So he's like, he stands up for himself. He starts boxing. I think the dual protagonist is a great idea, and I think it's pretty effective for the most part. I do think that not enough time is spent on both of them, I guess.
Yeah, it was just really weird because like you could tell watching the movie that Too Sweet was the main character, but yet when it came to like all of the boxing side of the movie, it was through Eugene's perspective. Yeah. So it got to the point where I'm like, it's like near the last third of the movie, and it's like, when the fuck is Too Sweet gonna like do something in this plot? I mean, he has his fight with Half Dead pretty early on in the movie, so I guess that's a taste of things to come. But yeah, basically, Eugene kind of... He wins one fight and then he gets knocked out in another. And that kind of gives him like a big confidence boost, and kind of like he's just like really ecstatic that he got knocked out. He's like in his cell, just like, yeah, I got knocked out. And Amos is like, I don't care. Stop talking about it.
He's like, you're still my bitch. He's like, absolutely not. He's pretty much like, no, I'm not. Yeah. I think, there a lot of these actors seem like they're non-professional actors, but I think like the guy who plays Eugene's pretty good, and I think his name's Leon Thomas Kennedy or something like that. At least Leon Isaac Kennedy, maybe the guy who plays Too Sweet. I think he's pretty good, and I really like watching him throughout these movies because you can see him get better.
Well, anyone whose name is Leon Kennedy is going to be good. So
I'm pretty sure that's his name.
Yeah. Threw in a Thomas in there for good measure.
Yeah, perfect.
Yeah. What's it called? Yeah, but
Eugene, they are going to Too Sweet is going to like probably win this tournament or get up really close. Like his biggest matches against Jesse probably, but Half Dead and Jesse, they plan to kill Too Sweet. But Eugene hears this and he jumps in front of it and he dies.
Yeah, and basically like Amos had set it up so like Half Dead would be like the one who stabs. Like basically they're like, we're all gonna do this. We're all gonna like come out from around the corners and stab him. But then Amos never comes out. Yeah. He's just like, I'm gonna just let the wild card take care of the work.
Yeah.
So yeah, he stabs Eugene and he dies in Too Sweet's arm. Too Sweet almost kills Half Dead there. And then, what's it called? Yeah, basically, he almost goes to kill Amos right there, but he's got... Oh, his name's a pun. What was it?
Seldom Seen?
Yeah, Seldom Seen. Yeah, he's befriended like an old man, and he becomes like bunkmates with him at a certain point, right?
Yeah, I think he kind of moves in.
Yeah.
He can't really live with Half Dead.
But, yeah, so Seldom Seen kind of talks him down. He's like, no, don't do it here. Do it in the ring. So, yeah, he trains for the ring and has the big fight against Amos at the end and pulls through and wins.
Even though Amos is like 50 pounds, like they're in different weight classes.
Yes, they are completely. And yeah, then he gets let free and he's like, you're going to go, the warden's like, you're going to go box for my brother. And he's like, yeah. And he tries to like also talk Seldom out.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's Seldom Seen can like go see the parole officer if he wants to, and they'll probably let him, because he's been in prison for 35 years. And then before that, 15, I think. Yeah.
And he just sits in his room and like is
I think the script is occasionally pretty abrasive with its politics and stuff. But I think like the Seldom Seen stuff is pretty poignant. Like he's stuck in here and he doesn't want to leave. He's scared that like there's nothing out there for me. The world has changed so much. I think like Shawshank Redemption has a plot point like that. Like there's a lot of movies that have a plot line, but I think it's pretty poignant in here. And that's another actor. I think the guy who plays Seldom Seen in this is great.
Yeah, I agree. To be fair, I didn't like any of the recasts in the sequel, but aside from Half Dead, he was probably the one where it was like, oof, yeah, this isn't hitting quite the same.
But yeah, I think this movie kind of rules. I like the kind of eclectic soundtrack to it. It's pretty like bumping and then like it's kind of wild. And I like the kind of abrupt dance scenes that they do. They have like interspliced sex scenes in the movie.
Yeah, there's like a random guy who's just like up in the bathroom stall.
And I think like you can see it as like just gratuitous, or you can see it as like a stark reality that the only reprieve in like prison is to sneak off and have sex. Or you can see it as both. And I think with movies at this time, it is both, and that's okay. I've been feeling really, I'm chronically online. I've been feeling pretty heated about this, whole sex conversation in media. There's a big Twitter's kind of blowing up right now, and people just don't want sex scenes in anything anymore.
Oh, it's just that thing where audiences were like, I don't consent to a sex scene.
Which
like, that's what the R rating is.
Yeah, I'm like, that literally. Penn Badgley, the guy in You, he said he doesn't want to do sex scenes anymore because
Fair.
which is fine, but he said it's because it feels too real when he's done it before, and I'm like, that is fine, but also kind of weird to hear about if you're one of the people that was doing the performance with him previously, because it's like that was probably just a day to them, and now you're learning it's like I fell in love. I'm just like, that's a little strange.
Maybe it's not so much like, oh, it feels real in an emotional sense as much as it's like, yeah, we're wearing pads, but we're literally grinding on each other. So.
Well, and he is, I think, married now, so I get it. Just the way he's wording it in a lot of interviews, I'm like, this is a strange word. Maybe think about what you're saying.
Yeah.
Which I'm fine if people are uncomfortable doing sex scenes. But I do think that I saw a tweet, and this really made me upset. They were like, before the 70s, there was like a code that made like sex scenes like not okay. And they were talking about the Hays Code.
Oh, no.
And they were saying, we should bring that back. I'm like, what the fuck is wrong with you? You can just not like something. But to say that we should be censoring like artistic vision, I'm going to fucking hit you in the head.
Yeah. Yeah.
You can just not like stuff. That's okay. But
you can not like stuff. You can criticize stuff all you fucking want. Just, don't fucking take away people's ability.
And I just feel like movies lately have just not... We're losing sexiness in movies. We're losing horny.
I mean, we're losing a lot in movies.
Yeah, but this is the thing that I'm on about this week. We'll talk about something else we're losing in movies next week. So I think maybe just because I'm in that mood, I'm like, this is fine. This is fun. And I do think like there's a certain amount of intimacy that you're missing throughout the rest of the movie that you're suddenly getting here. So I was fine with it. I liked it enough. I thought it broke up the story in an interesting and meaningful way.
I could see it. I didn't feel the same. I felt more like, God damn, why am I witnessing this bathroom bit? Like, God, they probably like cut back to it like what, 4 times?
I think 4 or 5, yeah.
So it's like, Jesus Christ, show me the box.
I do think it's pretty funny that like later on there's like 4 people. I'm like, what if they just keep cutting and there's just more and more people in the bathroom each time? There's like 15 people in a pile.
Yeah, I thought that's what I thought it was gonna go for at first, but then I didn't go that direction.
But yeah, I think the movie's pretty raw, pretty crude in its like filmmaking, but like there's a significant like director's touch to this. Mm-hmm. There's a unified voice that I like. I like most of the performances, even like the rougher ones, because it feels more raw. And the movie's gross and grody. It looks kind of like the penitentiary looks gross. Because prisons are gross.
Yeah.
I ended up really liking this movie.
I thought it was pretty alright.
Pretty alright. Sweet. I would give this one an 8. Wow. Let's talk about Penitentiary II from, don't remember when, and my phone just died. 1982, I'm guessing. This movie sucks. I don't like this one. Yeah, I know. There are things in this movie that I do like.
You mean you didn't like watching Ernie Hudson eat potato salad off that woman's face?
That's probably one of the parts I liked more, actually. Man, this like made me really upset because I'm like, what the fuck, Ernie Hudson? I like Ernie Hudson. I like his performances. And I think his performance is like fine in this. Yeah. But it's so different. So they recast Half Dead with Ernie Hudson, which I think was bad. And they also recast Seldom Seen as like a bigger, less old man. First of all, I think it's bad casting. Yeah, and second of all, in this movie, I do not think he should have been out. I think he should have chosen to not leave. I think it should have been more centered around him.
But, wait, what?
I don't think Seldom Seen should have been... I think when they go back to the penitentiary, Seldom Seen should have still been there. Because he doesn't actually leave at the end of the first movie. He said, I might go to the parole officer. Yeah. And I think there's like a kind of uneasy feeling where he's probably not going to go. Like, he can't leave. And he's just such a different character in this. And so is Half Dead. And they also try to give Half-Dead backstory and like maybe even like redemption or some sort of backstory, but he literally rapes and kills a woman in the beginning of the movie.
Yes.
Like, it's intense. If he had just murdered her, I think it would have been one thing.
What point are you thinking he was redeemed?
No, I don't think he was ever redeemed, but they were giving him enough backstory that I think they were trying to humanize him a little bit, at the very least. I don't mean redeemed.
Yeah, I don't know. I thought that was one of the more interesting scenes because he's talking about like his mom's potato salad, and his partner keeps going like, "Oh, you should go visit your mom. You should go visit your mom." And you can tell that he's probably like internally thinking about that, and he's like, "Nah, like I'm not gonna go visit my mom. They're 1,000 miles away." And then later on, he has that line where he's like, "Oh, you know," because she's like, "Oh, too sweet must be blessed by God." And he's like, "Well, my mom always called me like the devil himself." So it's like,
well, no, I do. I don't disagree that I think that is one of the more interesting aspects. I just think it's like, why? You're like not going to be able to humanize this character after what you had him do at the beginning of the movie.
Yeah, no, I was expecting, I guess, I don't know. It's hard to, because it's like, I was expecting, usually you want your villain to like kind of gradually get more depraved as the story goes on. You want them to do their most ruthless action kind of probably towards the more climactic part of the story, which would be like him smashing Too Sweet's hand, which happens later in the movie. But
yeah, it just feels out of order.
But yeah, no, I mean, the fact that his debut into the movie, like his call to action is like assaulting and killing a woman is like, just like, oof. Yeah,
I also think this handles like the assault a lot worse. It's a lot more gratuitous. Like in the first movie, there's a man, he chases the woman, but you don't see anything and she immediately runs out. In this, you just see a lot of it. And it's pretty gross. Which is what's also really annoying is like the scene in the hotel and like I think it's pretty well shot. I think it's a stark comparison from the first movie because I think the movie looks a lot better, at least in the first acts. And I'm like, what are you doing? Why are you making...
I noticed that too, because I was like, I think this looks better. And then it just later on, I was like, no, not really. I had a similar thing with the third one for like a split second. Because the version I was watching was extremely low quality. But looking at it, I was like, I think this might have been higher quality at one point.
Well, no, I do. I would be... Well, I guess we'll talk when we get the third one. But I have thoughts about that specifically. But yeah, it's just, I think the Too Sweet stuff with that woman, I think is interesting. I think it's genuinely interesting. I just don't think it really goes anywhere after that. It feels like after she dies, so Too Sweet goes back, he gets out, he sees this woman that he used to know, they get back together, and then Half-Dead kills her, and then sexually assaults her. And then he's like, I'm going to go box for her. I'm going to change the world. I'm like,
I kind of understood it, and I was expecting the film to like maybe, I don't know, because I was expecting it was like going into this movie, you would expect a bit of like the Rocky 2 thing. I know you haven't seen Rocky, but where it's like, oh, you're dealing with like success and your path to like becoming like a real big name after being like an underdog, and it's like, but they don't really do that. It's more about trying to pass that first hurdle.
Yeah. No, it just doesn't.
And it doesn't do it in a very interesting way. It's just like, oh, we're just going to have this character from his past show up and try to like just kneecap him, which could be like a commentary about like, I'm sure there's probably like messaging of like, oh, you know, I want to like get out and try to like change my life, but maybe people I was involved with in the past are like, you know, hold me back. And
I think there is something to be said about, you know, people that go to prison and come out, how hard it is to reacclimate themselves to like society. But I don't think the movie does a very good job at that.
Yeah.
I also think it's just really strange how they set up their villains. It eventually just turns out that he's going to have a rematch with Jesse. Why would you have Half Dead out of prison and doing all this stuff if you don't even fight him? Mr. T fights him. Also, Mr. T's in the movie.
Yes.
Just
yes.
As a guy. He's just Mr. T and he's training people.
Mm-hmm.
Like, what's happening? Why is he here? I don't mind Mr. T, but why is he here?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's just like, I feel like there is potential right at the beginning of the movie, and it keeps like squandering it. And I think the recastings are bad. I do think that the main character, like I said, I like seeing his growth as an actor and as a character. Like, he at least is doing interesting things with the character, but I think this movie is mostly bad.
Yes, I completely agree. Because I watched the first one last night and I was like, that was pretty good. And I got like 20 minutes into the second one.
Yeah, I don't think it's all bad. Like, I do enjoy, I think some of the boxing scenes are like better than the first one. I like that. Like I said, I like that main performance. I like the love story at the beginning. I think having a little more to that would be interesting before she dies. I think the sexual assault's a bad idea, just in general. Yeah. And it's also really gross how they film it, which is disappointing because I think, while it's crude in the first, I don't think it's like overly indulgent in it. Yeah, it's just not. This one was a miss for me.
I agree. Yeah, I did not care for this one.
Yeah, I'd give this one a 4. Didn't hate it, but I wanted to like. I really liked that first one. I was a big fan. I might buy I think they have a Blu-ray of it from whatever it's called. Vinegar. Nope. Video. Nope.
I think Vinegar isn't.
Yeah. Vinegar Syndrome. Nope. It might be that.
Yeah, it might be Vinegar Syndrome.
Oh, yeah. Also, I need to get a region-free Blu-ray player.
No, I've been...
because there's so many... Obayashi, the guy who did, like, Hausu and Monogatami, there's a bunch of really sick Blu-rays that I found, but they're Region B.
No, Region B has all the good shit, and it's like...
And it seems like a region-free Blu-ray player is only like $150. I might just buy one.
Yeah, and the nice thing is, now that we've entered the age of 4K, as far as I'm aware, all 4K is region-free, so...
Good. Regions are so stupid.
Yeah, no.
Like, what the fuck's wrong with...
Fuck you, I'm paying for this shit. Yeah. Don't block it.
Let's talk about Penitentiary III, which is, like, very strange.
Yeah, 1987, 5 years later.
Was it 82? Was I right? Mm-hmm. Oh, I'm a genius! So, he gets framed for murder again, but this time, like, he physically did it. He was drugged, though, during a boxing match, and he just, like, beat the shit out of a guy until he died. So he gets sent to a penitentiary, but this penitentiary happens to have, like, a 1600s, like, dungeon underneath it that he eventually gets sent to. It also has a strange villain man who has, like, a curtain, and he's like, how are you? He's like, might be a vampire. Not, like, actually, but he kind of acts like one.
Like a discount record, Howard.
Yeah, he even kind of looks like him. Yeah, this movie gets really wild. This one was produced by Canon, so
yeah, I noticed that this one had a lot. A lot less of like the kind of like talent showcase of like the first one, where it's like, oh, we just know a bunch of like really talented people. There's like none of that, and it had a much more predominantly white cast.
Yeah.
So I was like, oh yeah, this one must have been backed by an actual studio.
But it also had a lot more money, which I guess you could build a dungeon with that. So he fights a little person who's named the Midnight Thud, I think his name is, who wears like a BDSM collar and like grunts like an orc, and like fights him. And eventually they kind of get into a kind of a draw. And and they get sent to the dungeon. Pretty much, he eventually gets the shit beat out of him by I think some other dudes. I can't really remember. I was pretty tired when I was watching this.
Yeah.
At least at this moment, I'm like, oh, he's in a dungeon,
I was in and out.
and then I was back in.
But yeah, basically he wakes up because like basically there's like a connection to the warden is like about to go fight one of his friends from the outside, and he's like, train this kid. Oh god, oh, there it goes. Train this kid, and if he wins, we'll give you parole. Was that the?
I think they were gonna just let him out of the dungeon.
Oh, I see.
Because at the end of the movie, they say, you want to come out of the dungeon? He's like, no, I like the quiet.
I see. But yeah, so kid fights, gets fucking flattened. So he's like, I know, I'll step up and I'll fight one of this guy's like team. And yeah, and ends up fighting the giant macho guy who is, without his knowledge, also given the same drug that he was drugged with in the beginning that like rages him out. And he overcomes it and he beats him and he wins. And yeah. That's Penitentiary III.
I at the very least think this has more going for it than the second one. I think it's like a weird kind of fever dream.
Yeah. With the first few minutes where it's like, oh yeah, he's going back to prison, and then the scene with like the little person attacking him in the middle of the night, I was like,
I was like, this is pretty rough. But at the very least, they like make the like little person role, like he becomes kind of like a Yoda-esque figure by the end. He like is a wise man. He's like, you were the first person that treated me like this, so I'm gonna treat you like this.
Yeah, no.
I'm like, okay, this is interesting, I think.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I liked the character a lot better by the end. I'd say that last half hour I was decently invested, more so than I ever was for the second one.
Yeah. And it's like the second one, I'm like, wow, this is really takes the tone and like throws it out. And this one also does, but it's all the way to the other end of the spectrum that I'm like, this is fine at this point. It just feels like a different type of movie, which is okay. Mm-hmm. But yeah, I think I like this one. Like at least a smidge. I think I really do think, I don't know if we'll ever get a remaster because Canon like went under and then it was bought by someone and that went under. So it's like, I don't know who owns the rights. I would love to see, because I do think there are shots and I'm like, this probably looks really good if it wasn't in 144p.
Yes.
And it's just so goddamn dark in the dungeon. And I think with a higher quality, that'd be fine. But damn it. I want to like look at this movie. It's the same way with like The Boy Who Liked Deer. I'm like, this probably looks pretty good at this point. Like I can see a shot that probably looks good.
Yeah.
But it doesn't because it's a horrible quality.
Yeah.
So if that, I feel like I might rewatch the first one. I don't think I'll ever rewatch the second one. But if this one got like a remaster or something, where if I found a higher quality of it, I'd probably rewatch this one as well. But yeah, I like the discount vampire man. He's like a fun little villain. He like, at least if you're gonna be like this grandiose and strange with your movie, I think he's a fun kind of guy. I like what the movie is going for, where it's like, black people have these drugs just shuffled into their communities, and then as soon as they take it or as soon as it's given to them, they're punished for it instead of the people that are like shuffling the drugs in. You get sent to prison. People die because of it.
Especially with like the end with it being like a white guy who's given the drug, and it's like, I mean, he would have probably gotten away with it scot-free. I highly doubt they were going to check him after the fight and be like,
So like, at least I feel like this movie has more to say than the second one too, which is interesting.
Yeah.
It just feels like something was lost in translation in the second movie. While this one is weird and kind of like I said, like a fever dream, especially like in contrast to the first movie, which is pretty damn grounded, while this one is like, here's this super drug and here's a little person who has like, I thought he had an axe at first. He just has like a stick. and there's a dungeon, and there's a weird guy who has the curtains closed, and he runs the entire prison, and the warden's like, you gotta get him out of here. I owe him too much money.
Yeah, it was probably a case, like, the first movie seems like it was kind of like lightning in a bottle. And then they probably, like, you know, obviously got a bigger budget and had some, like, celebrities who were interested in being in the sequel, so I'm sure it's, like, not like a sophomore slump, but, like, the opposite, where it's, like, cocky about it, and then you fuck it up. And then...
because you're trying to... that's it. The second movie is trying to recapture something from the first. But the tonal shifts don't really work. And
and then this third one's like
let's do something different.
You know, tossed back to the ground, so they had to back to being the underdog and had something to at least try and prove with this one, I guess, maybe.
Yeah.
But
yeah, I think this movie's pretty decent. I probably, in the future, if we ever get a remaster or something, I think I might rewatch this one. What did you think? Okay?
No, I still didn't like this one. But
liked it better than the second.
I liked it better than the second one. I'd probably rewatch the first one at some point, but I don't think I'll rewatch either of the sequels.
That's fair. Yeah, I'd probably give this one like a 6, but it's pretty low 6. I think that last half hour really sold it for me, though. I think that last hour is pretty good.
Yeah, no, it was at least entertaining in that last half hour. So,
and like I said, I liked the lead enough that I was able to coast on the first bit. It was strange enough that I think I was fine with certain things. But yeah, that's Jamaa Fanaka's trilogy. I think he passed a couple of years ago, but I was like, in his old age, I would have been interested in him maybe revisiting Penitentiary, seeing what he could do with like maybe not a remake, but like some sort of reboot or something. Because I think there's some good stuff in the first one. Like I said, I really like that first one, but there's some really good bones in that.
Yeah.
But yeah, it was an interesting... we haven't watched a ton of stuff from like that LA Film Rebellion stuff. We've seen a little bit of Burnett, and we've seen Jamaa Fanaka now. But, so yeah, we did it. What are we watching next week, Thomas?
Well, speaking of Burnett, I thought we could watch To Sleep with Anger and My Brother's Wedding.
Sweet. I almost watched those. This morning I almost watched To Sleep with Anger.
Wow.
But I watched that Melvin Van Peebles movie instead. Sweet. We'll do that.
Yeah.
And we'll see you next time on Screen Weens. Tell your grandma.